Okay, good morning everyone once again. We are good to start. So thank you for joining PortaOne webcast about new features in PortaSwitch Maintenance Releases 81-84. Your microphones are muted, that's by design, that's okay. Please type your questions in the Q&A section. So let's start the webinar. So this one is going to be conducted by my colleague, Svetlana Melnichuk, who is a project manager at PortaOne, and myself, Mike Kiddick, product officer. By the way, I'm glad to see a lot of familiar names. I would like to see faces, but well, we have to make do with names. So welcome once again. So today we are going to speak about new features, enhancements that we introduced in the latest maintenance releases. We will also speak about third-party integrations, a new approach that we are taking into integrating PortaBilling with other solutions. I think that's going to be very interesting. I will also discuss briefly about our plans for the future, like what we are going to do next. And then, of course, as usual, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. I think this is probably the most useful part of the webinar because you can ask a question and get a live answer from one of PortaOne employees. So let's continue. So I'm going to pass the microphones to Svetlana, and she will speak about new features and enhancements in PortaSwitch.
Hello, everyone. I'll continue the presentation, and let's start with our first topic, region-based pricing for European destinations. So some European carriers apply separate charges for calls from within or outside the European Economic Area. Call costs are controlled by both by call origin, the country the call is made from, and the destination, the country where it terminates. With new releases, you can charge wholesalers customer differently for calls from within or outside the EEA. You define separate rates for the same destination for calls made from both inside and outside the EEA. Then, for each call to European destination, PortaBilling checks whether CLI belongs to the European Economic Area countries and apply the corresponding rate. This list, the list of European Economic Area countries, is predefined in PortaBilling, but at any time your administrator can adjust the default list and add some new countries, and that can be done via configurator server. Let's consider the following example for better understanding of this feature. Let's say your wholesale customer, EasyCall, sends calls from all over the world to Malta. You route this call to your vendor GlobalNet. And the first example, GlobalNet terminates a call from Italy to Malta. In this case, since Italy belongs to the European economic countries, the rate within the EEA will be applied. And the second case, when GlobalNet terminates a call from the USA to Malta. The USA does not belong to the EEA list, so GlobalNet applies the rate for outside the area. So this feature helps service providers adapt to the pricing policy used by their termination partners, and in this way avoid losses. And our next topic is about real-time billing for roaming calls. Now you can bill users for roaming calls in real time based on the network they are visiting. A user registers on this network when they are, for example, visiting another country. You give user a clear idea of their expenses while roaming, so they can better control their expenses, and this will avoid bill shock. To provide roaming services, you make roaming agreements with mobile operators. Networks are grouped into roaming zones, and each roaming zone has its own rates for outgoing and incoming calls, and it's defined in tariffs. Each network has an application server that processes calls. You can do the whole configuration, like mapping of roaming zones, defining a product rating list in a user-friendly way in the PortaBilling web interface. So let's sum up. With real-time billing for roaming calls, you can provide service to mobile users both in the home and roaming networks, and avoid the risk of revenue leakage, and configure roaming charges in a single place in a user-friendly fashion. And let's move further, and our next topic is auto-charge credit cards on invoice due date. Now you can charge customer credit cards not only at the invoice issue date, but also on the invoice due date. In this way, you can adjust your payment collection policy to attract customers who used to pay later, for example, large businesses. You specify a grace period for payments, activate automatic charging of customers' credit cards, and this charge will be applied at the end of the customer's billing period. The process is the next. PortaBilling generates an invoice at the end of customer's billing period and send it to them. During this grace period, the invoice remains unpaid and the customer continues to use the service without any restrictions. But on the due date, PortaBilling charges an invoice amount to the credit card. Well, let's look at the following example. EasyCall pays their invoice 30 days after they're issued. On the 1st of March, EasyCall receives their February invoice for $100. The due date for this invoice is 30th of March. So EasyCall uses the service for the whole of March. PortaBilling charged EasyCall credit card for $100 on the 30th of March to cover the February invoice. So this enhancement improves users' experience and makes your payment collection more flexible. Let's move further. And our next feature will be call quality monitoring. With new release, administrator can monitor the quality of customers' calls by using different metrics. In this way, they can identify and fix some network issues, analyze how the changes in network configuration can influence call quality. This helps communication service providers and their resellers meet their customers' expectation about the quality of service according to the SLA. PortaSIP collects metrics during calls or at the end of it. PortaBilling analyzes the collected data and defines one of the call quality levels, good, fair, or poor. An administrator can check the call quality level in the customer's XDRs. Quality details are available in their XDRs. By monitoring call quality, administrator can analyze current quality and take actions to improve it, identify network issues and fix them, and analyze how network configuration changes influence call quality. As addition, they can retrieve call quality statistic via the API to create reports, for example, in some external systems. So in general, end users receive better service quality due to proactive monitoring. And our next topic is external storage for call recording. Now you can deploy external SFTP storage to store call records together with such data as calling and call numbers, call duration, and custom fields. So you can offer storage space to customers as value-added services and earn additional revenue. You can also connect third-party applications to external storage to offer additional features like notifications, reporting, and sharing of call records. This third-party application can also help you to meet regulatory requirements, such as keeping calls records encrypted for extended periods of time. And how it works. Calls made by users recorded in PortaSwitch The WAV or MP3 files are saved to local storage on the call recording server and then copied to external storage via SFTP protocol. SFTP is one of the fastest ways to transfer files to another location. This functionality extends PortaSwitch integration capabilities and simplifies its integration into a CSP ecosystem. So let's sum up. Customers benefit from having the ability to comply with local regulations, using additional features from an external application. And by the way, there was another improvement to call recording. Now we can deploy multiple call recording instances to increase the speed of call recording conversion. Not only does it increase the capacity, but it also reduces the time users have to wait for the recording to become available. That's all. Passing to Mike.
Thank you, Svetlana. Okay, the next topic is not really a PortaSwitch feature. The next topic is pretty much a whole new product. And since I was a product owner or product manager for this product, I could probably speak about it for, I don't know, for weeks. But since we don't have that luxury, I'll try to keep it short and concise. So I'm talking obviously about PortaBI, our business intelligence solution. It is currently in the final stages of testing, and we will have it available for early adopters, for those who would like to try it within a matter of week or 2 weeks, 1 week or 2 weeks. So this is analytics and dashboards, and the initial version is going to have 6 reports. You can see the names of those 6 reports on the screenshot. And by the way, this is a screenshot from the actual solution, and that solution, and it's also built on the actual data from one of our customers. You can see that I use those blue rectangles to hide some private information and even currency, so you couldn't guess which company that is. Obviously, we don't want to share information about companies' revenue or profitability or usage and things like that. Yeah. So this is real data. I just made it anonymous. I just try to hide like any customer related information. So basically, there is a dashboard which shows you just the basic information on each of 6 categories. But when you click on specific category, like there is a show detail, it shows you a detailed report, for example, detailed revenue, which has much more information, like split of the revenue per country, per product, per customer class, you name it. So there are 6 reports available. Of course, we are going to continue developing and adding more reports and more widgets on the dashboard. So this is just the initial version. It also comes with a visual designer tool. So basically, not only can you browse one of those 6 reports that we've prepared for you, but you can also build your own reports. And it's a visual tool. It does not require you to have any kind of programming skills or to write SQL queries. Pretty much any person who understands the data, and the data you will be dealing with is PortaBilling data with all familiar item names or names of the objects. So basically, you use that visual designer to create your own report. So PortaBI is hosted in the cloud. It comes with a warehouse. So the way it works is that our support will deploy a small agent on your installation, which will collect the data from the PortaBilling database. And that agent supports pretty much all current versions that our customers use, starting from MR55. So you don't have to upgrade your PortaSwitch to be able to use PortaBI. That agent collects the data and sends it over to the warehouse, which is hosted in the cloud. For those of you who are within European Union, you don't have to worry about data protection. First of all, the warehouse or the hosting facilities are within EU. And secondly, we have the option to remove personal information, for example, customer name, before it is sent over to the cloud, before it is sent over to the warehouse. So once the data is stored in the warehouse, then the visual part kicks in. Basically, you can browse report, you can look at the data, and you can see various pieces of information split per different categories. So that's pretty much the idea of the tool. It is available as a monthly subscription. There are several options. So our sales team will be happy to find the most suitable, the most relevant subscription for you. Now, the next part is about the integrations. And typically during our webcast, I would have in this section a name, a list of different names. Like we would do the integration with mobile core equipment. We would do integration with some kind of a switch or with some kind of, or we would do auto provisioning for a new phone model and things like that. Well, we are slightly changing our approach to integrations. So first thing is that we introduced a new service called iPaaS. That's basically, again, a cloud-hosted solution available as a subscription, and it runs a series of isolated containers, like Docker containers. So we put some pieces of functionality into those containers, and we offer it as a service hosted in the cloud. The first thing that we moved into this solution was IP phone auto provisioning. The benefit of having these bits of functionality running in the cloud as available as web services is that you don't need to update your PortaSwitch to get provisioning for a new version of IP phone. You know that you will probably agree that is an overkill to get the whole platform updated just for the sake of getting a new model supported in PortaSwitch. So we've already implemented a few phone models within this platform. Again, you can sign up to that with your existing PortaSwitch version, and you can get instant access to provisioning of those phone models. And this is just the beginning. Of course, we will move more functionality. We will introduce more phone models available for provisioning later in there. So basically, once you subscribe to the service, it gives you instant access to some of the features, some of the functionalities. And that's the whole idea. There is no need to update your core platform. Of course, there will be functionality. There will always be some pieces of functionality that have to stay in your on-premise installation, that has to stay within PortaSwitch. But things like modular things, like IP phone provisioning, like payment systems, and so on, can be kind of outsourced into the cloud. So that's the idea of iPaaS platform. The next one is, again, related to integrations. And we are proud to announce that we have another partner with a big name, just like we've been working with Oracle for many years. We hope that we will have the same fruitful cooperation with Dell. So the platform in question is Bumi, and that's basically an integration and workflow, data flow designing platform. The idea of the platform is very simple, to allow people who are not developers, who are not programmers, to integrate multiple systems. So basically, when you need to have PortaBilling, communicate with some other platform, accounting platform, CRM, you name it. You would go into Bumi and you will design a workflow, data flow, or a process, if you like, where you would map the data that is received, for example, from CRM platform, and you would map it to the specific fields in PortaBilling. So the data would automatically be pushed into PortaBilling. The good example would be when you have a lead in the CRM, and when the sale is closed, when you successfully sold the service to a new customer, that customer is automatically provisioned into PortaBilling. The way it worked before, traditionally, you would need developers to do this integration, and it will take quite a bit of time. for all the programming and testing to be conducted. Now we have a first example with integration done through Bumi. So that integration was done by our project manager, not by the developer, and that project manager doesn't have any programming background. That's Sergey Kirik, who used to be a head of support, and his background is technical support, not software development. So he managed to integrate PortaBilling with Xero. That is an accounting platform popular in Australian and New Zealand market. It is actually developed by the company in New Zealand. And it was also integrated with HubSpot, which is pretty much a sales CRM. So the integration works in several directions. For example, when the deal is closed in HubSpot, the customer is automatically created in PortaBilling. When invoice is generated in PortaBilling, invoice data is automatically pushed to Xero. And then the final invoice, the invoice that is actually sent out to the customer, is created in the accounting software. When payments are imported into Xero, into accounting system, those payments are automatically pushed into PortaBilling, so balances of customers are updated, and invoices which were generated in PortaBilling get closed. So all this integration was done in a matter of 2 or 3 days by Sergey, without a single line of code being written. And again, I could speak a lot about how Bumi works, how it's done, but I believe that the best option is to show you a very short video that gives you an idea of how this integration is done. So let me try to launch that video. It was recorded by Klaus, another non-developer at PortaOne, who was doing parts of this integration as well. So, this is a diagram, basically, where you build the flow, the data flow, if you like. So you say what data you need to take from one system, how you convert it, how you transfer it, and how you push it into PortaBilling, for example. So this flow is about pushing data into PortaBilling. And this is how you do the data mapping. So it's a visual tool where you basically it's a visual tool where you basically map different fields of one platform, like HubSpot in this case, to fields in PortaBilling. So when a deal is closed in HubSpot, a customer in PortaBilling is automatically created. So again, as I said, no programming involved, just a visual tool to do the data mapping and to design the flows. And of course, there will be more integrations coming with Bumi. This is just the first step, but we believe this is a much better way of doing integration, as it's much faster. And it means that when you need to integrate PortaBilling into your existing ecosystem, it's a much shorter time to market. You don't have to wait for, I don't know, weeks or maybe even months for all those integration to get in place and finally launch a new product or a new service and things like that. So that's the other integration approach that we are taking at PortaOne. Now let's briefly speak about the future, like what we are going to do next, what are our plans in terms of development. I would like to start with explaining the current status quo, where we are with maintenance releases at the moment. So the current long-time supported release is MR80, which was released, well, almost half a year ago. But that's because the next long-life supported release is just like a bit more than a month away. So MR85 is going to be released on the 22nd of May. We have just released, like 10 days ago, the latest leap forward release. That's MR84. And the next one is going to be in July. So that's the current schedule of maintenance releases. Once again, you can see the full schedule, all maintenance releases with their respective dates in the RT system. So when you log in into the RT, in the top right corner, there is a button called release notes. And there you can see release dates of all maintenance releases. So what are we going to focus on in the next versions? MR85 is long-time supported release, so of course there will be not many features introduced there. We don't, in all LTS releases, we try not to touch the core functionality. We don't want to break anything. It has to be as stable as possible. But starting from MR86, the things we will do, first of all, we are going to replace RT. We had PortaBilling integrated with RT for, I don't know, more than 10 years now. So we are going to replace RT with Zendesk. The idea of the integration is pretty much the same, is to be able to link tickets or complaints from customers to specific customers in PortaBilling. So in PortaBilling, it's going to look pretty much the same. You open a customer record and you can see a list of associated tickets or issues with that customer. So you can see the full history of communication with that customer. But what's going to be new, that not only will we develop the part within the PortaBilling, we will also develop a Zendesk application. So your employees who typically do not log into PortaBilling, who do not work in PortaBilling, but they rather work in Zendesk or tools like Zendesk, where I'm talking about customer service. Yeah? So those employees will continue working in Zendesk, but they will have a special application which will connect to PortaBilling. So together with customer record, native customer record within Zendesk, that application will also show the billing related information. Like what is the current balance of this customer? What is the latest invoice generated for that customer? Has it been paid yet? And things like that. So Zendesk integration is one of the biggest projects that we are going to have next. The other one is handling of emergency calls. Most of you are probably not aware because this Harry's law was passed in the United States, but pretty much it puts an obligation on service providers to make the configuration of emergency call pretty much foolproof, meaning that nobody can break this configuration. So the end user is always able to reach emergency services. I don't know if something like that is going to happen in Europe, but you know, the global tendency is that things like that get copied from country to country. So maybe something like that will appear in other countries as well. So we do have some ideas as to how to make the emergency calls configuration foolproof. Basically, limit access to the configuration just to a few persons within service provider, and make it as simple as possible. Yeah, so there is no option to break. Then we will also be adding payment processors into iPaaS platform, and of course we will add more IP phones, provisioning for more IP phone models into iPaaS platform. There will be more integrations done via Bumi, and the next good candidate is QuickBooks, the accounting platform which is probably most popular in America, in North America namely, but I know a few companies in Europe who use QuickBooks as well. So yeah, that is a good candidate for the next integration. And of course, we will be happy to work with you on any feature requests, any additional functionalities that you may require for your business. Just let us know. Well, this section of the presentation or this slide is rather blank, and I probably don't have to explain why. Like for example, with Mobile World Congress in February, which was canceled, most of the trade shows get canceled or postponed, obviously because of the coronavirus situation in Europe, but in other parts of the world as well. So the same goes for PortaOne. Like, we are not traveling much these days. We even do our trainings remotely. We do online trainings, even though we believe that visits to our customers and trainings on premise are much better than online, but we have to make do with online trainings at this point. So the next trade show, which is likely to happen in Atlanta, is going to be ITW, and we will be happy to meet you there if the trade show actually happens, if it doesn't get postponed. And then the other trade show was actually postponed. It was supposed to happen in May, I believe, or in April. That's MVNO World Congress in Berlin, but it was postponed until September. So hopefully we will all stay healthy, we will all stay safe, and we will meet each other in September or in June when the whole situation with the whole crisis with coronavirus is resolved. That's pretty much all for today. That's all we had to present right now. So let's see what kind of questions you have, and we will do our best to answer all your questions. Let me just pull up the list of the questions. So there is a question about validation. So the question is related to origin-based charging for European countries. And there is a question about validation of CLI or A number. Well, the feature itself does not come with any sort of validation for A numbers. It just takes as A number and does a lookup in the rate sheet. So basically, it does a lookup in the rate sheet, of course, based on the destination country, but then it also checks the A number, whether it's a European country or not, and then just applies the rate, the corresponding rate. There is no validation as such in the feature itself. However, validation of numbers is not something which should be handled by this feature. There are various translation and validation rules, for example, on vendor connections, in the customer dialing rules, and this is the place where you would do the number validation. I hope that answers your question. Now, the next question is about BI pricing, PortaBI pricing. Well, as I mentioned, it comes as a monthly subscription. There are several options, there are several subscriptions that you can choose from. Please contact our sales department and they will be able to provide all information and also discuss the pricing. So, okay, there is a question about iPaaS platform, whether it's going to support customers developing their own modules, their own plugins, and publishing into that platform. So basically, customers can share whatever they developed and so on. So there are questions about whether these applications developed by customers are going to be verified by PortaOne for security issues, for compatibility, and things like that. Well, the answer is that it's too early to say that. So we definitely have a plan to make a sort of a marketplace where various modules can be exchanged by the customers. Yeah, we do plan to do that. However, it's only at the stage of discussion. There is no even architecture design for that matter, for that marketplace solution. So it's a bit too early to say what exact procedures will be involved in handling these customer-built applications. So yeah, I will have to get back to this topic when we have a more solid solution, or at least a design for that solution in place. There is another question about call recording. So basically, whether the call recording, export of call records to the external systems, to external storage and external application, whether the system supports kind of quotas for call recording. So for example, the customer is allowed to have like 10 gigs, 100 gigs of call records, or some minutes, yeah, a limit on minutes, like, I don't know, 10 hours of call records, maybe 100 hours, things like that. So this idea has been circulating around for quite a while. I remember discussing it with probably like 5 or 6 customers. So it sounds like different companies are thinking about charging for call recording using these quotas, but so far there was no real life project to implement it. So currently PortaBilling does not support kind of quota-based call recording. There is a global setting, like how much space can be allocated for each customer for call records, but it's just a global setting. It's not something which can be fine-tuned individually or which can be charged for. I mean, which can come with the different charges. So the answer is it's not available at the moment. If you have a business case and you would like to, go through the process of developing this functionality, please contact us and we will be happy to implement. What else? There is a question about Bumi integration. Like, how is it? I mean, when is it going to be available? Whether it's part of PortaBilling functionality and so on. So first of all, as I mentioned, Bumi is a separate product. Yeah, it's a product by Dell. It's not a PortaOne product. So we merely use that as a tool to design these workflows and design this data flows, if you like, or these processes of data being passed from one system to another and so on. So Bumi is available as a subscription, and it's also available for on-premise installation. We will be reselling those subscriptions or those licenses for Bumi as an official Dell partner. Or I think there will always be an option to go to Dell directly and sign up with them. Doesn't really matter. The good thing about Bumi is that once we develop some sort of some plugin or some module, if you like, or sorry, it's not a good name for these things. It's probably a process, a flow. Once we design a flow for a particular system, it can be reused. It can be used by other PortaOne customers. So you can call it as an internal marketplace or internal library of these connectors and flows. So once that library is available, we will be able to provide it to all PortaOne customers. Yeah, and that's the good thing about Bumi as well. So one thing is that it's easy to design those flows. It's very fast. And the second thing is that these flows can be reused by different PortaOne customers. But it will be a separate subscription, either purchased from us or purchased from Dell directly. There is a bunch of questions about third-party integration, which are not really related to what we presented, but it's more about like what our plans are. So currently, the only supported. So the question is about whether we integrate with other hosting services like Amazon, Azure, and so on. Currently, we only support. I mean, our solutions are only hosted in Oracle Cloud, and for now, we don't have any immediate plans to introduce support of other hosting services. The reason is very simple. Like, of course, some hosting services, they're not suitable for some applications. Like, for example, Amazon is doing poorly with real-time, or at least last time we checked, it was handling poorly real-time communication. Like when you send RTP traffic through Amazon Cloud, the quality of voice quality is very poor. At least it used to be like that when we checked it last time. So, but the other point is that introducing a new hosting platform and supporting it natively brings an additional cost of having engineering resources, developing and testing for that particular hosting provider, being it Google Cloud or Amazon or Microsoft Azure, doesn't matter. So with each platform, it would be an increased cost of development and maintenance for PortaSwitch. Since we prefer to keep our pricing competitive and as low as possible for our customers, we don't want to introduce other hosting services just for the sake of having a long list of available names. So there are no immediate plans for introducing it, but if we get enough requests for a particular platform, we may consider it in the future. What's next? Oh, there is a question about integration with RT. That are we going to discontinue it starting from MR85? So there are two answers to this question. First of all, yes, we are going to discontinue RT integration in the future. That's going to happen, that's unavoidable. Unfortunately, RT is not keeping up. It was first developed many years ago. Its architecture is quite outdated. I know there's been quite a bit of development on that platform for the last 10 years, but it's still lagging behind. It doesn't have all the modern channels of communications. There is no easy way to integrate, I don't know, Facebook, applications like WhatsApp and so on for communicating with end users, with customers. So yeah, unfortunately, it's lagging behind the market and we will have to discontinue. But the second part of the question, no, there is no decision to discontinue it right at the, within the next maintenance release, right on MR85. It may be still supported for a short period of time, but eventually it will be discontinued and we will replace it with Zendesk. Let me see what other questions we have. There is a question about call quality monitoring, whether it requires additional host, basically, or can it be deployed on existing infrastructure? Let me start by explaining how call quality monitoring works. So basically, there are two options. There are two technologies which it implies. So one standard basically forces the user agents, the endpoints, to send statistics about call quality during the call, like multiple times during the call. And there is another option when the statistic are reported by the user agent only when the call is finished. I mean, right after the call is finished. So when the statistics are reported multiple times during the call, and when you have a lot of calls, concurrent calls in your system, it means that there are a lot of messages which come to the platform and which have to be processed. So collecting these messages and kind of storing them in a cache, that's something which is handled by PortaSwitch. So it's done by existing component. However, analyzing those messages, that collected data, and marking specific calls, I mean, setting call quality for particular calls in XDRs, that's something which is handled by a separate component. And that component has to process, and of course, you want the statistic nearly real time or as close to real time as possible. So this separate components is very CPU intensive. It's a bit IO intensive as well. So it can be deployed on the existing infrastructure. But if you have a high volume of calls and a lot of the statistics coming from user agents, we recommend to deploy this component that analyzes the data and sets the call quality on particular calls. We recommend to deploy it on a separate dedicated machine. Oh, a good question, a good one. So the question is it possible to see? So the question is whether it's possible to see in the active calls page. So you know there is an active calls page in PortaBilling. It's actually called active sessions, but it shows you the live calls. And the question is whether a person can see that some of those live calls are being recorded. We don't have that functionality yet. So there is no way to see in active calls that the call is being recorded, but it could be a very good addition. So please contact our support and we will discuss it, and maybe we can introduce a new feature into PortaBilling, because I believe that could be quite useful to see that some of the active calls, or which of the active calls, are actually being recorded. And then the last question is, sorry, it's not really relevant to what we discussed in this webinar, but I will answer it anyway. So, is there an API call to send an SMS message by PortaOne customer? So basically, there is an API call to generate an SMS, which can later be delivered over SMTP. There is an API call. Whether you expose that API to a customer or you use it internally is up to you. I mean, you will have to develop an application that actually invokes that API, and that can be a customer-facing application, or it can be your own internal application. So the API method is there in the latest versions. How to utilize that API method is totally up to you. So I think I'm done with all the questions. So once again, thank you very much for joining this webinar. The recording of this webinar will be later made available. So if you missed some part, or if you need to listen to some of the questions again, you will be able you will have a link published on the PortaOne website, and you will be able to, to revisit the webinar and listen to the recording. So thank you very much for attendance. It's been a pleasure. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope we will meet each other again in the future. Thank you.